It connect to the other. Okay. See? Matenga, it's not going live.
When I pray,
Okay, it's live.
You're live. You're live.
Okay, we're live.
Okay. But can you make it to the view? Can you do the view there? Right? Gallery, yes. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Fundi Lenyati, aka Dr. Fundi. Welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel. Today, we are going to have a very interesting discussion on a very serious matter. I am here with my colleague, Lizel Anthony, who is a very experienced clinical psychologist. At some point during our conversation, she will come in from the view of a psychologist to say when people are faced with the kind of challenge that these junior doctors are faced with, but not only doctors, other healthcare professionals who are currently, unemployed, uh, how can they be able to cope with that situation, whilst they are waiting for solutions to their problem? But our starting for today, our main guest for today is a gentleman who has been trending on all the platforms, on TikTok, on Facebook. He goes by the name of Dr. V, but his actual name is Dr. Vuyo Langa, who happens to come from my home province of the Eastern Cape, in a small town called Tomo, in a village, rural village that's called Kotoha. This is a gentleman who's a qualified medical doctor, who studied his medicine in Cuba, came back to South Africa to finish his training at the University of Pretoria. He has done his 2 years of internship, at the Frank and Cecilia Makiwane for 2 years. And then he has done his community service at Umtata General Hospital, which is the same hospital where I did my internship in 1990. So that's quite a long time ago. So I don't know how things are now, but that was the hospital in the former Transkei in 1990. So we are going to firstly play the video by Dr. Vuyo, and then we will talk to him about what made him to actually choose to do the video. What was his intention? What was his objective? And now that he has done that, what has since happened? And I must also mention that I reached out to the National Department of Health, so that we can also hear from the National Department of Health, what is it that is being done to try and solve this challenge of these young doctors. And so we have Dr. Luvuyo Bayeni, who is no stranger to the Eastern Cape. Dr. Bayeni is the Chief Director, in the area of human resources for health, in the National Department of Health, working and reporting to another gentleman that I know very much, who is a DDG, Dr. Percival Masati, who is also here, but more as an attendee. He didn't want us to promote him to a panelist, which is something then that we are fine with that. So we are going to have this conversation then for the next hour. It's just to look at the issue of unemployment amongst the junior doctors. But like I said, there are other people who are also unemployed post-ComServe, physios, OTs, dentists, and other people. But today we are featuring Dr. Vuyolanga, who is a medical doctor. So we will play the video that he made, and then thereafter we will then also play another video from Dr. Taz Mumtiaz Imiran. And so after that, we'll then talk to Vuyolang. All right, I'll ask my team to play the video of Dr. Vuyo. What is happening now? See now. Just hold on. See, it's over one time. Can you just get him to do this, please? Just hold on. Technology is showing us up. We want to share the video from Dr. Vuyo. Okay. All right, you're just gonna have to sit for both.
It's me, your favorite unemployed doctor. Hey, yes, don't be too nana. If can you like can you share nizise nakwi-platforms zenu la khona umuntu onoba noncedo okanye singenza njani? Zange ndayibona into eyenzeka kulo nyaka imbi, ayiginyeki, ayi-understandeki. Singoogqirha singe-more than 1024 edolophini ngoku, asikashwa. Kwenzeka ntoni? We do not know. Siyazama uthetha no-government, siyazama uaplaya, but akho ziposti, akukho ntoni. And imbi nje into, isituation imbi. Sihleli phantsi guys, asinanto kwenza. Akukho msebenzi uvela nakwi-GPs nakwi-private practices. Into enzekayo, ii-lines ezibhedlele zinde. Abantu abakwazi uhoyika ngexesha shota, but at the same time kukho oogqirha ComServe lo nyaka funeke afumane imisebenzi nangoku. Ubiqhubeke phi guys? Do not know. But kubi xa ngekuhlanga siyalila, asazi uba kwenzeka ntoni. It's not even about us at this point ke ngoku. It's about South Africans ezingafumani services, ezingafumani medical services. It's not like asifuni Sorry, Doc, I cannot hear this side. I don't know what's going on. Sorry?
Can you hear?
Yes, now I can hear. Yes, now I can hear. Yes.
All right. No, that's fine. So we are going to play another video which was trending as well from Dr. Mumtaz Imran that we had approached, but unfortunately she could not join us. But the reason for playing the video is just for us to also hear from another perspective about the same problem. So I'm asking my team to play that video again.
I'm a doctor in South Africa. Of course, there's 800 of us that are unemployed. I'm a doctor in South Africa, and of course, there's 800 of us ready to work. I'm a doctor in South Africa, and of course, I want a government post because I need that in order to specialize. I'm a doctor in South Africa, and of course, we only have 3 options. First one is to local. We can't do that because there's not enough locals to actually 800 of us. Second option is to open a GP practice. We can't do that either because we can't afford to take out a loan and pay it back. Our third option is to move abroad and work in the UK, Canada, the US, or New Zealand. And we can't do that either because we can't afford the process, which is really expensive. I'm a doctor in South Africa, and of course, for government clinics, patients sitting in queues waiting for longer than 4 hours because they're understaffed. I'm a doctor in South Africa, of course, I have colleagues still in hospital right now working 26-hour shifts, suffering from burnout, and because they're understaffed. I'm a doctor in South Africa, and of course, I have a family to feed. I'm a doctor in South Africa, and of course, now I'm trying to do side hustles in order to pay my bills. I ask you again, what do 800 doctors do sitting at home unemployed, ready to serve, but unable to serve?
All right, so we have just heard from the 2 young doctors. They are ready to serve, but they are unable to serve. They are resorting to doing side hustles, in a profession that long time ago people thought it guarantees you a job. Dr. V says there's no jobs for the almost 1,000 post-home service doctors. He does not understand because the queues are quite long in the health facilities. They require people with their skills. He says he's not choosy because there's been a narrative that some of the doctors who are not placed because they did not want to be placed in rural settings. They preferred Johannesburg, Durban, or Cape Town. So he's saying he is not choosy. He is a bursary holder, and that meant he was supposed to have been, accommodated to serve the time that he was funded for his studies. He says the parents always say the key to success is education. He's got the education, but it has not given him the key to a job and to success. And this is not unique to medical doctors, but it's actually common amongst the different healthcare professions. So we're gonna let Dr. D to talk to us now, Dr. V to talk to us. Dr. V, please unmute yourself, and I wanna talk to you. Right, please tell our audience who you are. Yes, I did try to introduce you, but it's always better from the horse's mouth. Just tell us about Ungubani, but please use English where you can because we've got people who speak many languages on the channel.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vuyolwe Tulanga. I'm a medical practitioner. I was born and raised in Tsomo, one of the small towns in Eastern Cape. I grew up in villages called Qoqoqa. And then I went to Njebonzaluba, and then I did my grade 12. After passing my grade 12, because I had a desire to study medicine,
And because I saw the need on my community, so I then looked for means that could help me to study medicine. I came across the bursary that was advertised in the district that, no man, in this district of Mbaba, we need doctors who are short-staffed. The doctors are burning out, and some of them are leaving because the patients are too many and the doctors are very few. So we signed the agreement between me, my district, which is representing the government, and me to study medicine in Cuba. I went to Cuba, I studied medicine. I completed my degree within a duration. I was passing very well. I came back to University of Pretoria to complete. Everything went well. So because I wanted to serve my community, I had a choice to go wherever as an intern to serve, because when you are intern, you are not obligated yet to come and serve. So because of this desire, I was like, okay, I said I'm studying medicine to serve my community. Let me go back and look for the hospital in Eastern Cape that accommodates interns, and also that would be held too close to my community that I wanted to serve. So the hospital that was close to me that could accommodate interns was Frey Hospital. Lucky enough, Frey Hospital also had the patients that were coming from Tsofimbaba, because it's also a referral hospital. So I could meet people from my community. I could meet people that I wanted to see and serve and help. So it was not a big deal. I was happy. The patients were happy. And then after I then applied within the province still, because I love my province very much, I came to Mthatha, which is also a rural place. I did my community service, which is a year duration. We completed it on December 31st. But now we're facing a very big problem of unemployment. It seems as if we do not have a communication between us and the government, because around December, it was late December, I can't remember the date very well. No one told us that we're not going to be employed on January. No one told us about the issues that the Eastern Cape Department of Health or National Department of Health is facing. We just saw the letter that says now we are released, we can go wherever, because the government doesn't have money to employ us. We do not know where that letter comes from. No one sat us down and explained anything. So we had a hope that maybe things are going to change on January. But now we see that things are not changing. Instead, things are becoming worse. There is no communication between us and the Department of Health. Instead, we're seeing things on social media that we didn't say. We're seeing things that people are saying that we do not want to work in the rural areas. The posts are there in rural areas, but we as doctors, we do not want to work there. We do not know where that information comes from, because as I believe, almost we are around 148 Eastern Cape doctors in the group that are not employed. In the bigger group of unemployed South African doctors, were 1,042, I think, because the number is increasing. By the time that the female doctor did the video, it was around 800, but we are increasing each and every day because people are discovering the group now. So we decided to form the groups according to provinces, and on the national levels, we try to reach out, but we do not get a proper communication as to what's going on. We do go to hospitals to apply. There are advertised posts. We do apply, and then after we've applied, there's no one who's called to say, okay, now you've been offered the job. It's a different case where we apply, maybe, let's say there are 3 posts, and then we apply, we are 12, and then the 3 is called. Now the situation is, we get called, we attend the interviews, and then after that, there's nothing. There's no communication at all or whatsoever. The department has not responded to us yet formally as to say what's going on, what is the solution, when is it going to be solved, why they didn't communicate on time. We really do not know as from yet. And I want to clarify, because I mean, we are not the only people that are being affected by this. Even our colleagues that are at work now, they are burning out. Even the patients that are there, out there, because our patients, the patients that we are serving, especially in my province, because I'm not going to talk about other provinces that I do not know. I was born and raised here, I'm serving here, I worked here all my life. Patients in Eastern Cape, some of them, sometimes they go back home without being seen, because there's this one doctor in the hospital that is going to come and start in the ward. In the ward, there are many patients that this doctor is supposed to see during the day, and some of them are very complicated patients. So you're gonna see these patients, refer them to tertiary hospital if you have to, do whatever procedures if you have to. Whereas there are patients, outpatients, because the hospital is like this, there are patients that are admitted. There are patients that are coming from home. Those we call outpatients, they are coming for their reviews, they are coming for their follow-ups and whatsoever. The patients that are coming from home, most of them do not even have transport, for God's sake. Picture Kopimvaba, if you know. Most of those patients are coming from Tsomo. Tsomo doesn't have hospital. Ngamakwe doesn't have hospital. So they have to wake up at around 4 o'clock, for example, in the morning to get to the hospital. Once they're there, they're going to have to wait for the doctor that is going to come back maybe from the wards around 12-ish, because maybe she was seeing complicated cases. He was trying to refer patients to Frey, he was trying to do procedures up until maybe around 12. And then you start to go to the outpatient, see patient, outpatient department. And then while you're seeing them, they're still going to call you in the wards if there are complications that you must come back. There's this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 complications that you need to sort out. So as some of the patients, they end up not being seen because of the shortage, and the doctors there that are day employed now, they are also burning out because there's a shortage. So the workload is too much. And we asked also that we started and we wanted to serve, we do not have.
All right. Yes. So you say you are part of an organized grouping of the affected doctors.
Yes.
You guys are grouped per province and also nationally, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So before we go further, what was the intention of you recording the video, which has since trended across the various platforms? Obviously, now you've explained the plight. What were you hoping? I just want to hear it. You did mention it a bit on your video, but I just want you to go a little bit deeper about, is it desperation? Is it trying to highlight the issue to the wider community? What were your intentions when you recorded the video and it ended up trending?
The intentions of me recording the video, it was not desperation more than I wanted us to communicate, because there is no communication between the doctors and the Department of Health. And we are spreading information that is not in line with the reality. For example, I had the Department of Health on I think it was Unfiltered. They said, we do not want rural areas. I'm one of the people that were born and raised. There's no way that I can say I don't like rural areas, for example. And also to try and get means of people that can help us, because we formed the groups, yes. There is Eastern Cape group, yes. There is national unemployed doctors, the national level group, the one that has thousands to 1,024. But in all those groups, we do not have a person that is there to inform us from the Department of Health or from our trade union, for that matter, because sometimes we don't even have communication from the trade union itself, Samatu. You see, so I was trying to reach out and tell South Africans that this is what we are facing currently.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I am one of those people who then, was approached by even parents. Well, some of the people who sent me your video are parents who are concerned that, the families have invested a lot on you guys, hoping that when you guys qualify, you will then be able to uplift the families and change, the circumstances of your families. And little did they know that there could be a possibility of you guys not getting the job. Now, just one last thing I just want to hear from you before I go to another speaker. Were there any expectations that you guys will automatically get placed after you've done your ComSec? Or it was the expectations from your side were there, assuming that should be the case? I just want to hear from you guys
as the doctors who are now sitting at home, was there anyone who created an expectation that you guys will automatically get the job? And so I'll be playing that devil's advocate. So some of the questions I'll ask, I hope they're not going to make you feel like I'm insensitive, but I just want to understand.
Okay, I will speak on behalf of the bursary holders because I don't know about other people, but us as bursary holders, we have a contract. The contract is between us and the government. The contract says we're gonna fund you to go and study medicine, be it in South Africa or be it in Cuba. And then when you come back, you're gonna come back and serve us this number of years. Because I do have the contract even now that says I'm gonna come back and serve Eastern Cape. I'm gonna come back and serve my district for at least 6 years, which equals to the number of years that I've studied medicine for. So that contract was brief and there was no communication to us as to why, or I don't know. We just saw the letter that we do not know where it's coming from, and then it was circulating everywhere, and then that was it. But we did expect a lot.
All right. Is there any signatory to the letter? Is there a signature there at the end of the letter, or an office where it came from?
We did sign the letter. The letter is my signature and the signature of the person that was responsible at the time from Bishop. I'm gonna have to find it now, but we do have everyone.
No, I'm saying the letter that says you guys are released.
Oh,
you can go and.
Yeah, there is a signature at the bottom that is stamped that the letter is coming from the Department of Health Bishop. But I do not know the name of the person who signed it. And there was no meeting prior to the release of the letter so that we can both parties can agree. Because I mean, if we sign the agreement, we then need to sit down and agree with each other and then sign down whatever thing that we need to sign. So the letter was released from the Department of Health, Eastern Cape, but I do not know who signed it, and then it was circulating all over.
Okay. No, thank you very much. So, like I said at the beginning, I have invited, somebody from the National Department of Health, the Chief Director in the Human Resources area, Dr. Luvuyo Bayeni, who also, prior to him getting this job, he started around September last year. He was actually in the Department of Health in the Eastern Cape. So I'm gonna ask Doc to just come in at this point. We are going to promote him as a panelist so that he can be able to share with us, whatever info. I'm gonna ask him a few questions, obviously based on some of the things that we have shared. So yeah, I'm trying to get Dr. Bayeni to come through. He is muted at this point and his camera is off, but I can see him. Dr. Bayeni, can you please unmute yourself? All right, sorry, man.
Yes, I think I've managed to unmute. Thank you very much. Yeah, no,
all right,
that's fine.
sorry to hijack you. I was told that Unutotana, a Methodist church. So you most probably are very busy, with those commitments. But thank you very much for joining us, Doc. And maybe before I start asking questions, maybe you can just introduce yourself properly in terms of your portfolio within the National Department of Health and whether this matter actually does fall within your directorate or not.
All right, thank you very much. And indeed, to the first notice I got, so I could not even respond to my boss when he was asking me to stand in. And subsequently, then I managed to get hold of him, and then that's when we made contact. But we are public servants, and we do want to see a responsive government. So it is no challenge for us to be available, especially when it comes to issues of addressing concerns that affect the public as well as our employees. So it's not a problem for us to be available even at such short notice. My name is Dr. Luvuyo Bayeni, as you have alluded. I am officially the Chief Director responsible for Human Resources for Health at the National Department of Health, which is a portfolio that indeed deals with policy matters, that deals with HR, but as well as ensuring that there is a plan by national department that focuses on the training and development. But the third aspect of it also deals to workforce management, both our South African workforce as well as foreign nationals. So indeed, the issue falls under my portfolio. As one, it relates to the issue of training and the production thereof. Two, it also relates to the issue of the workforce, what conditions are there for their workers. And thirdly, it also does relate to the issue of planning and policy matters to say, how did we get to where we are now? What were we thinking as a department? So indeed, it is within my portfolio, as mentioned by the DDG when you were engaging him.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Maybe, because I gave the young doc, Dr. V, some time to just take us through what he has been going through and with his colleagues. Maybe it's also good to have the department just giving us a view as to what is the reason for the challenge that we are in. There must be some constraints that are there that have led to this situation. And maybe start at the national department versus the provincial departments, because people are employed at provincial level, but then there is also the national. What's the role of national in this matter? What's the role of the province in this matter? Maybe we start there. And then what seems to be the issue that has led to where we are now? When I say we, as in the young doctors who are quite basically unhappy and disappointed. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Fundi. Maybe let's start where the problem or what the problem is.
Yes.
We are of the opinion, but this is a reflection on the current socio-economic status of South Africa as a country, which is defined as or reflected as unemployed graduates. So I think that's where we need to be able to link and understand that this is an issue of unemployed graduates, which the country has been observing. And let's be honest to say, at some stage, we never saw it coming that it would hit the health professionals. And that's where we are now, that the country is faced with a number of unemployed graduates, whether it be from IT space, from HR space, from engineering, from teaching, all the faculties and all the professions that you can think of. And unfortunately now we are sitting with a situation where what we have been observing and seeing and being sympathetic to, because it is very worrisome that you would have unemployed graduates. We have got our kids, fortunately mine is still at grade 9, but you would not want to see a situation where you send someone to school and the next thing they become an unemployed graduate. So it's something that has been of concern for us, but now we are facing it because it has hit home. And of course, whenever something that you've been observing from outside hits home, it hits hard, because that's who you were not expecting to feel it the same way you were passionate or maybe sympathetic to it when it was not happening to you. So that's the principle, or that's the bottom line, that we are facing, that as a country, we've got a challenge of unemployed graduates. Now we must bring it home to say, now as a Department of Health, what does that mean to us? Of course, there is also a surprise, maybe if not a shock from the community to say, we did not expect that you will have doctors, because as citizens, we expect that doctors should be able to come and work because we are sick and all those things. So of course, there is that added maybe pressure, if not a sympathy from the citizens in terms of why is it peculiar or different from the other categories of unemployed graduates, because now people want or relate to it personally to say, I'm staying at Namakwe and I know my facility or my closest hospital is going to be Tsofimvaba. So now if you have a doctor that is at home, I'm considering myself and not being able to get access to the service because you don't have a doctor employed there. So that's why also, even yourselves, you manage to say, people are having an outcry about this. Let's see how we bring it to the table. Let's have a conversation around it. Because of that personal issue or personal touch, but also that sensitivity to say it deals with people's health. That's why it's so peculiar for us as a Department of Health. And of course, we are not ignoring that we need to be responsive as a department as well as a government. And as such, maybe there are a couple of things that we would like to clear to say this is how we do things. As a National Department of Health, like I mentioned before, the portfolio deals with planning. There is currently now an HRH strategy 2030, which is trying to give a projection to say, where do we see ourselves and what portfolios and what professionals do we think we need? Where are the gaps and how can we improve the healthcare system? So we do have that as a document that we are working on. The second issue is even on training and production, you would accept that we have even since increased. When you were training, there were only 8 medical schools in the country. Currently, we have got 10 medical schools, and that excludes the Cuban program. And we are still getting other applications for expansion of program and platform. So in terms of the training aspect of it, we are trying to say, let's see how we train to meet the vision of 2030 of saying, where would we need to improve in terms of the allocation or the supply of the health professionals across the board. So that's our national health space. When it comes to the workforce is then to say, what conditions of service are we providing for our health employees? And in this case, if you talk of doctors, it will also include your overtime, it will talk to your RWAPs, it will talk to your actual basic salary, it will talk to your OSD, and it will talk to your rural allowance, which also applies to the others. So that's, I'm trying to get to the question that I was saying, let's give a picture as to what becomes the NDOH or National Department of Health role in this whole thing of the employment of the health professionals. Of course, in particular, the doctors, as we are discussing the doctors in today's topic. So that's the National Department of Health. Now talking about unemployed doctors. Now it will come to the issue of the workforce management. The doctors that we are talking about are doctors that have duly completed what we refer to as a statutory appointment or placement, which in the case of doctors will be to a 3-year period. The first 2 years is medical internship, and then the 1 year is that of community services. All these statutory period or trainings or service is meant to declare or render or register or certify the doctor to be able to be seen, regarded, and registered as an independent practitioner that can work on their own. What that means in terms of the current situation of employment in general, it means these graduates now are able to enter the market and look for opportunities for work as declared or certified or registered with the council as independent practitioners. Of course, as a National Department of Health, we would love to be the employer of choice. That it doesn't change anything. That we would like for people to consider us as an employer of choice. But what it means for them is that now they are entering a job market, which means they should be able to be comfortable that they can apply for work anywhere and everywhere. So that's the issue that we need to also address, that as an employer, we would like to be an employer of choice, but we are not the only potential employer for the people that are entering the job market. The second issue to it is that, of course, this is something that we have been dealing with in the last, if you can reflect on the last 3 years, for instance. But I can also bring in some statistics that we have managed to retrieve from our data to say, on average, in the last 3 years, we were able to say we are appointing about 900 medical officers. So it means that we are able to create opportunities from the national department. And the statistics are based on the PESAL printout and the PESAL report, where once you are appointed, we capture you on PESAL. And the only thing we did in terms of responding to this cry, we then went to say how many medical officers have been appointed for the last 3 years and each year as new appointments. Of course, it means that when you are in the job market, you'll compete. There could be a Dr. Fundi that decides, I'm no longer interested in private, I want to go and serve the state. So this appointment might not purely be for those that have just completed community service, but it was opportunities that were created for everyone to compete in terms of the medical officer appointments. So that's what has been happening in the space. Now, fast forward to 2023, December, we have received this notification from Samatu, which I was happy that V was mentioning, that they also have got their own issues in terms of communication, which is not our part as a Department of Health to get into. But we can confirm that there has been communication with us between Samatu, with the Department of Health as the entry people that raised the matter, and subsequent to that, SAMA as the association also raised the issue. So initially, Samatu had submitted a list of about 800 plus doctors, which then we said as a department, this is now the beginning of January, to say, give us the list, let's just verify, are we talking of the same people? We can confirm to you that out of that list we were given, there were about 16 doctors that were on the list, but those doctors had since been appointed between October and December. So it might mean that before then they were unemployed, but they since have been appointed according to the PESEL printout. Then you've got 694 who were declared to be completing their community services in December 2023, 31st of December. And then you've got about 60 of them who would be completing up until April. So that is what composed the list that we received from SAMATU as versus our verification. Let's confirm that we do not keep a list of unemployed doctors as the National Department of Health. Because like we had said, we release people to become available for the market. Such that we monitor you whilst you might know placements of interns and community service. So that we've got control or we can account for. But once you have been declared to be independent, we wait for you to come and be employed by us for us to be able to account for you. Yes, of course, we can do a game of numbers as to how many ComServes were completing, how many people were produced by the universities. So that can be done, but it's not necessarily something that we can say. We can now commit to you to say we can give you the actual figure of saying how many doctors are unemployed. And remember, there's fluidity. Others may choose not to apply to us because they want to open private. Others may choose because they want to go abroad. Others may choose because they want to pursue academics on all sorts of things. So that's why it's not easy for us to say we can confirm and account for the list of unemployed doctors. Of course, he is saying, Uvi, that even their number is fluctuating as they are in their different committees. So in terms of the number issue, we can confirm that Tina, we are accountable or we can respond to the numbers of those that have completed community service for 2023 and those that we know when will they be completing this year. But we cannot account to say, if you are to ask me now how many doctors are unemployed in South Africa, unfortunately, as a department, we currently do not have. That's why we rely, and we do have an open door policy with the Medical Association, as well as SAMATU to say, whenever you've got a list and you've got these numbers, please share these numbers for us to say, this is what you are picking up. And we can verify if these people are registered with the HPCSA and have they worked for us before or something like that. So I thought maybe let me just clarify the issue of the numbers as well as the issue of the communication. Maybe just to add on the communication issue to say, we have been keeping in touch and in constant communication with the representation that we thought is legit, which is SAMATU as well as SAMA, because according to our understanding as the National Department of Health, those are the structures that represent. I did pick up that V is mentioning a lot about themselves being organized as unemployed. I must say that we do not have such a communication that came through to us to say we are the organized unemployed doctors, because it will also change a lot of things in how we do things to say, do we now recognize and listen to them, or we follow what we have, which is structural and organizational for us to talk to SAMATU as well as SAMA. So the issue of them being organized, maybe he would further clarify or something, but for us, we can confirm that we have been having constant communication with SAMATU as well as SAMA as the association that governs the medical profession. You can say, where else should I touch on? I think I did touch on the issue of the communication. I did touch, yeah.
Just there, Doc, unless things have changed, yes, SAMA is the biggest association of medical doctors, but it's not a compulsory organization. For example, I don't belong to SAMA. It's a voluntary association. I'll also assume, therefore, that SAMATU also doesn't therefore represent all the doctors. There would be doctors who are not members of SAMA or SAMATU. Hence, you would have people who are organizing themselves on the side. But there is a hand that was raised by Dr. Mteteleli Kakavu, who is also on the call. I just want to take his question, Doc, if you don't mind. He is one of the big docs in the Eastern Cape. I think Etala, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to hear Dr. Kakavu what his question is. Maybe I'll take about two or three questions and then allow you, Doc, to just respond to them. Thank you very much, Doc. So, Dr. Kakavu, you can ask a question and let's do it in a very professional manner so that we can continue to have, a productive engagement. Thank you very much, Doc. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. We can hear you, Doc.
Doc Maheni is saying a lot of important things that are true, but we need context. The National Department of Health has been releasing what is called the Human Resource Strategy documents. We've got the 2010 to 2012 Human Strategy document. We've got the 2016 Human Strategy document, where it is actually stated that doctors won't just be employed for the sake of employment, but they will be part of the bigger vision, the national vision of the country in terms of healthcare. The two documents were never fully implemented, but I need to remind everyone that the foundations of the NHI, where we are going, they're actually based on those documents as well. So when we are talking about doctors' employment, we need to be broad-minded. We are not talking about people just needing jobs to get paid, but we are talking about the national vision, Doc. So this is why we need to be careful about how we handle things. So I'll leave that open. Secondly, we're in an economic recession. For the past 5 years now, GDP growth has been less than 1%. So it makes sense for Treasury to say they don't have enough funds for this. But I want to remind everybody about something. Between 1986 and 1989, our GDP was far worse than what we have right now. Yet doctors were being employed on an annual basis because the vision was bigger than that. What we need to be aware of is this: national priorities. Doctors are part of the national priorities. Other professions are important as well, but doctors are part of a bigger plan. So when we talk about doctors being employed, we're not just talking about people getting jobs and getting salaries, but we are thinking 2050, we are thinking 2080. And to fully implement our NHI, everything is defined by how we handle things right now. Between you and me, Doc, I'll tell you now, this is not just about doctors not getting jobs, but it is us giving an impression. Do we know what we are doing? Can we handle things for the nation to have faith in us? I'll stop there, Doc.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Kakavu. I also have the president of the National Health Care Professionals Association, Dr. Donald Umede. Many people will recognize his face on TV. He does a lot of talking on matters that have to do with the medical profession, but not only the medical profession, because the organization is about healthcare professionals in general. So he does a lot of advocacy. Some will remember at the time where the medical aids were being questioned about racist policies and whatever, and his organization was quite, big in that space in trying to ensure that there was an independent investigation. So he's one of the people I invited this morning as somebody who represents all the healthcare professions through his organization. And they had a big conference yesterday in Kempton Park, where all of their provinces, they were actually looking at the state of the healthcare system in the country. Dr. Kumete, please unmute yourself and you can ask a question or share your opinion on the issue that we're talking about today.
Thank you, Dr. Fundi. Thank you very much. And I'm hoping it's Madame who's sitting next to you. I'm very honored to be in your channel. I think I'm gonna give you blunt statistics because I've heard both the DG and the doctor who just spoke as well. They just spoke in things. I'm gonna be straight. Okay, so what the doctor was trying to say just now is that we are in debt for our national debt is sitting at 72.2%. Our national debt, meaning to our GDP. Our GDP, meaning in simple terms, our salary for the country. And then think about it. So it means we as a country, we earn only 20-something%, you know, because the rest is what we owe to the IMF. So this problem, we must actually contextualize it. He said the right thing actually, truly, earlier on, the DG, when he said it's an economic problem. They must come out clear. And also, I'm going to mention this painful truth. The National Department of Health, as you alluded earlier on, is not responsible for employment. It's the provincial government. Even in their budget, when they get into a budget, the budget which is 250 billion, I even know it, in Parliament when it's passed, the national government only takes around 60 billion. The rest goes to the provinces. It's shared according to the population of the provinces. Those are the true. That's the true information that actually is there. And also, when he says that 900 people were employed, he must also state how many people took retirement as well, because also you must minus those people from the system. It was not only people who got employed; there are people who were laid off as well. And now, at this point in time, as we are speaking, the budget for our Department of Health, almost between 60 and 70% goes to salaries. That's why even if they were to give me the position of minister, I wouldn't take it. Because why? I wouldn't be able to employ new doctors or new staff. Let me put it that way, because we represent across the health spectrum. Because of what I'm just saying, because there's no money. And remember, the doctor who actually is from Eastern Cape who's unemployed, when the department employs you, they must guarantee your salary from January to December and to fulfill the whole contract. And it was our association, the National Healthcare Professional Association, which went, probably when I went there, it was before I was employed, to fight with them when interns, Dr. Mfundo, they were not employed, and community service. It's me who pushed them and told them this is a statutory breach, that you guys went to Parliament and passed these policies, and now you are failing to fulfill their obligations. That's why they had switched on to make sure that all interns and community service, they honor and train them. It was our association. We don't want to take a lot of noise. Even when the specialists were threatened that their overtime is not going to be paid, it was us who went and negotiated with them, set them around on the table to say, if we want to improve the situation or the health situation in the country, it's not going to help us if actually we don't look at the whole health system holistically. We need to look at that. They must just acknowledge. And I know when I go there, most of the time, hey, Dr. Gumede, we have to contact Treasury because we don't have the budget. We have to go. And I understand it's because of the bigger picture that I've explained. Uguti, as a country, we're sitting at 72.2% budget deficit. Think about it in a smaller logical way. You are earning 100 rand and you are owing Umashonisa 72 rand. What is your salary that remains with you for you to be able to run your country? You know, so they are given the money, the treasury by the IMF every year based on that debt deficit to say we are giving you 300 trillion, maybe 2 or 4 trillion. All right, in that 4 trillion, make sure that you run your health system, make sure you run your police, make sure you run your education, make sure that you run. But remember, we're still sitting at the debt of 72%. So it's a very difficult situation. I understand them, but they must come out clean and honestly and tell the whole truth the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Doc. But maybe before you get off, what are you guys doing as we speak in relation to this issue of the post-conserve healthcare professionals who have not been employed? Is your organization involved in any engagements as we speak?
Actually, as you alluded to them yesterday, were in OR Tambo, then Captain Park. It was part of the topic that actually I presented with the SG, because you see what is critical also. It's also I made them laugh. I said to them, you see, looking at one stream income in this day and age, it's an insult to your intelligence. Because you see, you can't at this day day still think that you must be spoon-fed by your government or by whoever. You should actually start a multiple stream intervention in your life. And that's why we are moving forward. I can confidently share with you to try and create private hospitals. All right, because you see, that's the way. If we build maybe 300 beds hospital one, we'll try. We'll do it. I'll come back to you and tell you that we've done it. We'll employ certain number of doctors. We'll employ certain number of nurses who are sitting at home, physiotherapists, occupational health. You see, it's a whole industry on its own, which will absorb certain number. So we also, as a community, also have to look for solutions and stop complaining always and things. So we do have projects that actually we are trying to do. We're trying to create so that we are able. And then I've had someone he tried to make it. They made the race issue to say white doctors are not affected by this. Most of them, yes, true, because Netcare is giving them MO posts as GPs in the what do you call it? In the emergency France. Why don't we have our own private hospitals as well and employ them, the likes of Dr. V? You see, so also we must come on board, because government alone, they won't be able. They may talk and talk because majority they're politicians, but in truth and reality, we also have to take a leap and say, this is how we're going to address the problem. Because indeed, he's very right, the doc as well, to say, after the community service, it's not the burden of the government to employ you as a doctor. It's not. They've done their job, okay. They're finished.
Thank you very much, Doc. Let's hold it there. I can see the hand from V, but there is also another one question that was posed. Who's the person who has posed the question? All right, there is a question by Tapelo Mulotsi, who's directing a question at Dr. Bayeni. Please explain why the state, Eastern Cape Department of Health in particular, has unilaterally breached its clause 4.3 to 4.4 of the Bursary and Social Compact contract. Subject to the provisions of this agreement, the bursar shall enter into full-time employment with the department after having obtained the relevant degree and completion of internship and community service, or any period of practical study that may be necessary for a professional qualification, equivalent to the number of years funded by the department. Should the department have granted and paid additional funds to enable the bursar to repeat a year or to obtain any outstanding credits, as envisaged in clause 3.2 and 3.4, the bursar shall, in addition to the aforementioned applicable period of employment, extend such period by 12 months for each additional year in respect. Basically, if you've repeated a year and you finish your medicine in 7 years, then you'll have to work back 7 years. Now, I must mention that, I qualified in 1989, and I had a bursary from the Transkei government those days, and we were expected to pay back through working the 6 years of the post qualification. But obviously, when I went back and worked the first year, they did not honor some of the aspects of the contract, and in so doing, they breached the contract. And so I got released as a result, and I went to private practice in Port Elizabeth, which is something that maybe Dr. Donald Kumeda is saying, that because there's been a breach of contract, and therefore these guys who are bursars are not necessarily, therefore, tied up to that contract. Maybe they need to explore other, options for gainful employment. But let me leave it there. Dr. Bayeni, can you please? But Dr. Percy Mahlati before, who is the DDG for Human Resources for Health, is actually with us. We are going to allow him to, he's the big boss, who's this? He is sitting, and I'm sure you'd like to add on some of the things that Dr. Bayeni has already said. So that is upward delegation. Thank you for your presence there, Dr. Mahlati. He was my president of the MSRC at some point at medical school, and the chairman of the House Committee at the Alan Taylor Residence. So we come a long way. And Dr. Mahlati, in Xhosa we say when there is a big problem that needs men of integrity to come and help to get that cow out of the mud. So please, Dr. Mahlati, the floor is yours.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Fundile. And thank you, Ngogun Tuta, at the beginning. I think I'm going to add a few things, that just to strengthen, some of the arguments that have been put forward. But let me start by saying that we fully sympathize with the situation that we find ourselves in. The question of unemployment of young people in this country has been rising over the years. Like Dr. Bayeni said earlier on, it's not something that has not been seen. Actually, in the health services, the rehabilitation professions are the hardest hit. Your physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and so on. So is then to say that, look, it's not something that, we've not been noticing. Certainly, there have been very serious attempts to try and manage the problem. Let me just share with you what we did last year, because last year we were given a number of 1,000+ doctors that it was alleged were unemployed. We got the data. Unfortunately, the data, were left a lot to be desired. Repetitions, people without correct ID numbers, contact numbers not there, MP numbers not there. So that becomes a challenge, because you can't just take somebody who says, I'm a doctor, and you take it at face value. That is why both to Sama and Sama, to those who engage with that, we said, give us the full names, their ID numbers, their MP number, their PESAL number, and in which province they are. Because if you've done internship and community service, certainly you are in the record of Treasury. So PESAL would actually be able to, give us, that kind of information. So I think that's the first part that I would like to, deal with. Number two, let me say that with all the goodwill in the world, we would like to employ as many doctors as possible. But the reality is exactly what Dr. Gumede has just articulated, with the economic situation in the manner that it is now, it's impossible that we can actually be able to absorb even those that have been helped by provincial governments to study. That is a reality, around it. And I think the other one really is the fact that there is a contractual obligation between those that have been given bursaries by the provinces and, the provincial governments. And the fact that the Eastern Cape has not, appears to have reneged, from its position is not unique. A few years back, Limpopo Department of Health released many of its bursary, holders. They were in medicine, nursing, physio, right across, simply because the coffers had run dry. Now, the challenge really is, you see, when somebody, reneges on a contract, you've got two options. Either you just walk away or you take them to court to enforce the contract. That is the law of contract. And unfortunately, you can't expect young people to actually spend the money they don't have to go and, take the government to court. So I think it's important that we actually find ways of how do we then advise, especially young doctors, because they're at the crossroads. And remember, when you were actually just post-internship, remember, we used to do just 1 year of internship. Afterwards, you actually had to swim on your own. You did not have a 3-year cushion that you could actually get used to the world of work and all that. Let me come to the other issue that I would like to clarify. There was an issue around that Dr. Gagavo raised around NHI. I think there is a lot of misconceptions about what the NHI is. That's a national health insurance scheme, which will be run by a national health insurance fund. There are two aspects to healthcare. One is the health services, provision of health services. The other one is the funding. The NHI is there to buy services on behalf of patients. It's not there to employ doctors, nurses, and so on and so on. It's not. So which means that the health sector review has to continue as to whether health services are funded in the current manner or in a different manner. So I thought, let me make that distinction because if we actually take NHI as replacing the way health services are actually structured, we would have a problem. There is still a large space for private health provision. The only change is going to be around the remuneration the buying of those services. Now, lastly, let me say what then we're doing. What we're doing, you see, it's like when you run a household budget, many colleagues will tell you, I do a lot of grocerying, myself with my, with my wife. The goods that you used to get for about, let's say, 1,000 rands or 1,500, you get them now for 2,500, which means then you must actually start prioritizing where do you spend the rest of your money. You must then actually buy the basics that are going to carry you right up to the end of the month. A similar principle we're applying now. We're actually saying, look, we've had these many retention measures that Dr. Bayen reckled before. Your committed overtime, your rural allowance, and so on and so on. What we're busy doing now, we're actually saying, let's review all those. Fundile, we spend more than 7 billion on commuted overtime only. It means that the fewer that we have in the system, we're spending so much. So would it not make sense to review that system, free up that money, bring in as many as possible in, because if you've got 4 doctors running, Butterworth Hospital, let's say for argument's sake, I know it's more than that. But then by freeing that money, you can be able to employ up to 15. Those 4 will be less spent out because the rotation for overtime is actually going to be reduced. Instead of doing 3 nights a week, you might find that it ends up being 1 night a week that you're actually doing overtime. So these are the issues that we're looking at, because to cry that no, Treasury is not giving us money and all that, and we're not doing the belt tightening internally, it does not help. We've got to do belt tightening. We do know that the colleagues that are benefiting a lot from commuted overtime, that they've actually even made it part and parcel of their basic salary, they're going to be up in arms. But the reality is that overtime is a demand-based, thing. So it is not something that is standard. So there is a lot that we then have to do because we're basically facing an earthquake. So I thought, let me just add, to what Dr. Bayen raised earlier on, to say, we're not sitting back and just watching. We're actually doing a lot of work, including engaging provinces to say, guys, we know we are tightly squeezed, but try the best that you can. But we know the reality. Let me end there. Thank you very much.
Imanjalo talk, Imanjalo talk. So I think the message that is coming through is that provinces basically don't have wiggle room to be able to absorb more. That's what I'm hearing. And something that Dr. Gumede basically said as well. Now, there are two possibilities. When you are in such a situation, is either you go and get more money, in this case, it would be national treasury, or you create efficiencies within the system so that you can free up money. This is two options. Now, the issue of raising money through national treasury, I heard that you guys did look at that, but it doesn't seem like there's wiggle room there as well. Therefore, the issue of efficiencies within the system at provincial level, less mismanagement, less corruption, less this, less that, to free up more money, looks like something that therefore needs to be considered, but for somebody like Dr. V, who is sitting Emakaya at home, what hope do you give Dr. Mahlati that maybe there is something that may come up? You can't exactly give the date and say it's March or it's June or it's August or whatever. But is there anything that you think these guys must, hope for, or basically you guys are on your own?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one. Let me start with the earlier one around efficiencies. Part of confronting the commuted overtime and make sure that we reform that will free quite a few billions that we can be able to then apply to employ more people in. But clearly, one of the things that we're clear about is that the 8 to 4 standard employment of doctors no longer works. So we've got to look at a new model of engaging professionals, not just only doctors, because the challenge that we have is that to actually give people guaranteed lifetime employment is something of the past. I don't know of any industry that still does that, I think we're actually left behind as, as the department, And I know that in administration, people like me are actually on 5-year contracts. Beyond that, you've got no guarantee that you'd actually be employed by government. So that's one. The second one is that corruption is a problem. And we really do not want to run a police force. But what we need to do in the health system is to actually tighten the accountability measures. And that, the consequence management is actually strengthened, because if people steal and nothing gets done to them, or they do something wrong and nothing gets done to them, others will actually follow to do the same thing. So it's very important that we do so. On efficiencies in the clinical setting, it's important. For instance, we've got doctors, senior doctors that come to work at 7, 9 o'clock, they are gone. They go and run their private practices. And let me be clear, not all doctors, because there's a tendency to take the words and twist them and say, you said all doctors. No, not all. People that will actually work for 2-3 hours, go and run their private practices, but expect to be paid for the full 8 hours that they were actually not at work. So we need to actually tighten around that. So those are some of the issues we're actually looking at. On the issue of what I can promise, Fundi, one thing I've never done in my life is to be dishonest. That I've never done. I'm not going to lie to the young people and say to them, no, tomorrow you'll have a job. But one thing that I can say is that Dr. Bayeni has sleepless nights trying to actually push provinces and say, look, guys, try the best that you can. We do understand you've got limitations in terms of budgets and all that. But in turn, we've got to review some of the incentive retention measures so that we can bring people in. I mean, it's unfortunate. We cannot say, no, look, tomorrow there is this and that and that. But the engagements with Treasury continue. Even at the level where the two ministers engage, I mean, where the minister says, look, we cannot just leave the health services like this. And by the way, when the minister talks to the Minister of Finance, is not talking on behalf of doctors only. There are so many that actually we need, especially at primary care level. The reason hospitals are overloaded is because our clinics are bypassed for a variety of reasons. So we need to strengthen also that clinic level. We need those professionals that are required in those cases so as to decongest our hospitals. So when the minister engages with Minister Godongwana, it's actually to say, look, we need to actually make sure that we insulate the frontline health workers. So let me leave it there. I may not have given, something immediately positive, but honestly, that's the situation.
You've answered like the politician I've known you to be.
No.
Yes. So
Actually,
Dr. V, yes, Dr. V has got his head raised. I'm just going to hear from him, but there's two questions from Dr. Minenhle Mkhize. And then I think I'll ask, Dr. Bayeni then to come in. I had organized my colleague here next to me, Ulizl Anthony, who is a clinical psychologist. Because obviously, I'm sure the guys Bayakowa, the stress levels are at, a very, very high level. So I thought, before we end the conversation, some tips to the individual doctors on how to at least try and cope whilst everyone else is trying to find a solution. Maybe as a question that I'm posing to Dr. D, Dr. Kumede, what is the role of the senior healthcare professionals in the respective professions in terms of also coming in? Can you imagine if every GP can at least take one of the doctors, just every GP in the country, give them a work opportunity? It may not be a full-time, kind of job, but one person, giving a work opportunity to a doctor. There's more than 800 private practices in the country.
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to make a commitment today that I'm going to take one of the doctors, right? As my own contribution to solving this problem. At least I'll give them a 6 to 12 months kind of contract. Now, I'm challenging other doctors, either in solo practices or in group practices, to actually give a work opportunity. You may even give them a chance to volunteer so that at least they have got somewhere to go to, give them a stipend. For now, I'm worried that they may have Golf GTIs and BMWs and whatever they bought as they were interns, and all of a sudden they may not be able to pay for those right now. But I think besides the government, we, the senior people in the profession, we also have a role to play. And like I'm saying, I am going to give one person an opportunity in my company, and I would like other people, Dr. Kakavu, to bring in at least, even if he works half a day or she works half a day, let's also chip in because clearly there's no more job guarantees for doctors in the healthcare profession. So, Dr. V, can you please come in?
Yes, Doc, thank you for the opportunity again. Most of the things that I wanted to say earlier on, Dr. Molotsi has highlighted them. But now, in conclusion, from our side, I can say we are very, very, very disappointed, especially not because we are not unemployed, but because of the lack of the communication. For example, you cannot take the decision not to break the contract between you and the other person without involving them. Because I mean, if you knew earlier on that no, there's gonna be this problem, I think the government needed to tell us maybe early or late internship that no, guys, we are planning to release you from the contract after you are becoming an independent practitioner. You can try to apply somewhere else, or you can even consider going overseas. Because I mean, I was looking at the options to go overseas, to go to Iran, to go to all these countries, Canada, for example. The application process alone takes about 6 months. And in those 6 months, you have to actually take money out of your pockets, which we don't have, because there was no communication that we might be released from the bursary obligations. So I mean, I think even the ones that are coming behind us, because they are the same number, if they don't have communications with them, then there's going to be this issue again. Because if maybe, I'm just thinking,
Dr.
if
V.
maybe, sorry?
Dr. V. Dr.
Yes,
V.
yes, Doctor.
Can I just ask you a simple question, ne?
Yes,
Do
yes.
you have a CV as Dr. V? Do you have a CV? Because as somebody who's been in the industry, as somebody who's been in the industry for over 30 years, one of the things that I've always found is that medical doctors of different levels, they don't even have the most basic thing. Is because basically, even when you have to go overseas or wherever, you need a CV. And because jobs were automatic, guys didn't think. So I'm asking the Ikonana, and at least that's the starting point from home. So udibanise i-CV. Yaqonda? Undithumelele i-CV.
Okay, Doctor. My CV is ready
Right.
with what courses on top of it.
Hey, masiyeke apha.
Okay.
So, right, let's go to Dr. Bayeni. We need to wrap up now. Dr. Bayeni, there's been, a number of contributions from different people, and your boss did come in, but I think you may, wrap up from your side as this is in your directorate. And then I will ask Liesl to also just empower them from a mental health point of view. How do they, wake up and look positively to life that is actually, serving them lemons at this moment? Dr. Baye.
Thank you very much, boss. And I must say that I appreciate even the discussions themselves because they've also created a platform where we are able to say this needs all of us more than anything else. And it's good that we are able to communicate. I think our parting shots is one, we are still open to engaging anyone, including the organized people. We were not only limiting ourselves to summer to end only summer, but we're just confirming that it's only those that came through. The second thing to us is that we have been pushing, as 3DJ had mentioned, that provinces are slowly coming up and providing these opportunities. I know in January the 8th, Free State 60 Post had closed on January the 8th. It was on a Monday, and we are still following how many of those new unemployed doctors will be able to take up those opportunities. So we are pushing that each time the provinces get an opportunity, they must create. Unfortunately, we are restricted by the financial year, and we are hoping that come April, there's a lot of provinces that will be able to say we have budgeted, because the reality, Fundi, is that the financial year we are in now, that we are closing in March, is the same financial year that unfortunately also had to incur the burden of the salary adjustments. And that bill was never budgeted for. So that's where we find ourselves in this kind of a dicey situation. But we are committed as a department to say, let's work, let's be proactive. And we do agree that let's improve on communication. I think it's also maybe a bit of a lesson for us to say, on those bursary release letters, maybe then let's try and indicate the projections quite early, as the SV is saying that he does not necessarily have a problem when we release him, but the timing thereof, that we did not give him time to look at the other opportunities that are there. So I think in terms of communication, we are taking the lessons and we are making sure that we will take this message to our provinces. Fortunately, every 3 months, we do have under my portfolio what we call National Health Resource Committee, which is inclusive of all the provinces, and the provinces are represented by their DDG, which means that we do take this issue of the human resources for health very serious, and we want commitment from provinces by senior officials when we convene them. And we'll raise these things in our March meeting to make sure that we plan ahead and we can do much better in April and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. There's just one or two questions from Dr. Minenhle Mkhize. I think they are directed at Dr. Mahlati. So I think I'll ask, I'll just read that. Where do we start? One of the questions has already been answered directly by Dr. Mahlati, but there's another one that says, as we speak, your families are well fed, hence you don't recognize nor sympathize with us. I'm sitting at home, running on a negative balance, and have nothing left, literally nothing. I've went to my district DOH, but nothing tangible. And we listen to such webinars with the hope that we'll hear solutions, but we have the audacity to tell us we are on our own. I really hope none of your kids will undergo such level of poverty after completing one of the most prestige professions. And that is Dr. Minenhle Mkhize. There was another one up there.
No, I think we.
Okay. So I think this is maybe just a painful message from one of the doctors who says she's sitting at home with literally nothing. I'm not sure if it requires an answer, Dlamini, but if you want to, you can answer. And then I'll ask Lizel to please just come in before Dr. Kumede comes in. So Dlamini, Dr. Mahlati. Dr. Mahlati.
No, thank you, Fundi. No, actually, I mean, I just wanted to say we fully understand the strain, we fully understand the problems, but really I would urge colleagues not to get personal, on these matters. Just on a personal point of view, some of us have been...
Sorry, Dr. Mahlati, there seems to be a problem there. Please, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm back just quickly, just to finalize, is that sometimes colleagues think that, when others are in employment, they've never been unemployed. Some of us have been unemployed before, but this is not a competition about that. All I want to say is that, colleagues should actually not lose hope. But the reality is that even if the current Department of Health would wish to employ every doctor in this country, the reality, if you listen to what Dr. Kumede was saying, we're actually living on borrowed money. And there is no way that we're actually going to be able to absorb everybody in there. But that does not mean that we're not trying to do the best that we can so that young people can actually be employed. We were once young ourselves. We know exactly what it means to have employment immediately after you've actually finished the work. So I'll just leave it there, Fundile, to say that it's not without trying, but we've got to deal with the realities. What we will not do, and we've said provinces would not be allowed to do, is what happened before. I remember in the Eastern Cape, in Mthatha General, there were about 6 young people who were employed many years ago, and they went on for 6 months without a salary, simply because they were put against posts that were not budgeted for. That is the worst that you can do, exploit somebody and then you do not pay. Anyway, PFMA does not allow that now at all. So it does not mean that there would not be, but we don't want to actually get to a level where people get desperate, and fall off the rails. We have to make sure, and the call really is to government as a whole. And I do know that the cabinet meeting that's coming up soon, this matter of unemployed graduates is actually going to be raised. Certainly our minister is going to raise that particular matter, but we can't give guarantees that this is what then cabinet will come up with and all that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Now, just before Dr. Gumede wraps up his inputs, my colleague here, who helps me a lot when I'm also going through business-related stresses. So I've brought in somebody that I actually use as well when I'm going through stuff. Payments are not coming. I need to pay people and all of that. So Lizzle, just 5 minutes. How can you empower these guys to hang in there whilst, during the period of uncertainty, whilst waiting for provinces to have their new budgets from the 1st of April?
Thank you, Doc, and thank you, everybody. I think we first need to obviously acknowledge the fact that they are going through a very difficult period. Being unemployed, not having an income is not easy, because it impacts not only yourself, it impacts your family and everybody else. So a lot of research has actually gone into the impact of unemployment, and there's a direct link, there's a direct link, unemployment to no income affecting your mental health as well as your physical health. So I think that's one of the things that we need to actually acknowledge. So it basically says that unemployment results in reduced income, which is directly related to deteriorating health and deteriorating mental health. So I think it's important thinking about the health professionals, the medical doctors. It's not just medical doctors, but we're talking about that profession today. But if our health professionals are being impacted, how then, when they do get employed or set up private practices, how effective are they in providing a good quality service to the patients that come to them? So it's a big problem. It's quite far-reaching, and I think it's important that it does get addressed with, and it starts with having these open conversations. So having said that, yes, people that are unemployed and medical professionals especially can suffer from anxiety, they can suffer from depression, they can suffer from reduced or lower self-esteem, lower self-worth, and I think that is definitely what we see. Today, we've had a lot of frustration. There's been a lot of disillusionment. There's been a lot of pessimism about the future and whether promises that were made are going to be kept. And I think people are feeling a sense of paralysis and feeling stuck, not knowing where to go and what will happen. I think there's also a sense of being disheartened and a sense of feeling betrayed. And I think it's important that we do acknowledge that apart from the basic needs that are not being met by them to their families right now. So it's not just individuals that are impacted, families are impacted. Their mental health on an individual level are impacted, but also those families are further impacted. So I think it's important that we actually stand still and acknowledge that, and that was echoed by Dr. Mkhize. So I think, having said that, what is it that you can do right now? And I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that grief is a normal response to loss. And all of you have experienced a sense of loss. You've lost a sense of where you thought you were going to be, a sense of where you thought your life would be, how you would be executing certain things. And I think it's important to look at that. But when you're grieving, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be frustrated. You're not going to be feeling depressed. You're not going to be feeling stressed and anxious. And there's a lot of anger that might come out. And I think it's important, first of all, to acknowledge and allow yourself to experience the grief that is basically natural to this process. But it's important to basically face your feelings as well and accept the reality. The reality is that, what you thought would happen is not currently happening. People are not currently being employed, and that will not happen for the foreseeable short-term future. And I think it's important to get to that point where you face that, but avoid beating yourself up about it. Don't personalize it. Don't internalize it. It's not about yourself, and look for the silver lining. How do you do that, though? You know, a lot of people is going to ask that, and you need to reach out. You need to start developing new relationships. Look at your networks. Look at people that you've previously worked with. Look at academia and people that have helped you. You know, how have you established relationships with the university? Or other academic institutions, contact them, you know, so mobilize those networks and see if you can do anything related, whether it's starting to tutor, whether it's starting to supervise students. Look for opportunities with your networks. But also expand your social networks. And I think that's something that Dr. V and a lot of the doctors are starting to do. They're starting to mobilize themselves and explore building social networks and start networking for new employment opportunities. That might be medical related, but might be outside of the sphere of medics as well. Involve your family for support. I think it's important to speak to them, be honest with them. They are your biggest supporters. Doc, you've spoken about a lot of parents actually contacted you.
Yeah.
So reach out and speak to people to assist you in that way. And find other ways to define yourself. I think the message that came out today was we all in our own little corners need to diversify. We can't depend on one stream of income now. So diversify on your skills and your talents. I think that's going to be important and crucial going forward. And we all need to do that. And like I've said, look at the opportunities, look at your networks, look at setting up new friendships and new opportunities. Get moving to release your stress. If it means building social networks, building new friendships, building new relationships, that's how you do that. And then just the basics of the basics, stay focused on what you can control. What is within your control? Can you mobilize? Can you set up new networks? Can you reach out to those people?
Companies.
I think the best thing that I can say to everybody is be your own best advocate. You can tell your story in your own best way. And the way to do that, and you've asked the doc, do you have a CV? Your CV speaks for yourself, and you can tell your story better than anybody else. Start focusing on the things that are within your control and do those things. And slowly but surely, you know, doing that in a positive manner with a positive attitude, staying optimistic about the future will help you also to get things moving and not to feel paralyzed or stuck.
Thank you very much, Liesl. Obviously, when you are deep in the challenge, sometimes it's even difficult to make sense of what you've just shared. But the point is the mental health of these guys who are going through unemployment. At this moment, it is surely challenged. And what we don't want to hear or see is some of these guys, committing, suicide. So that's why I go back to saying, as the older people, let's reach out to those who are going through this in our localities and see how best we can be able to help them to mitigate some of the challenges that they are going through. And where we can offer them opportunity, it may not be a 2-year opportunity or 1-year opportunity, even if it's a 6 months or 3 months opportunity, that means a little bit less money taking home, as a business, because we didn't budget for this, but it will save a life. And it was one of these people maybe supporting 2 or 3 other people at home. So I think this is the time for Ubuntu from all of us to do something to make things better for the younger guys who chose this profession that was said to be a noble profession, still is a noble profession. The only thing is that there's no guaranteed job anymore. Dr. Kumede, please wrap it up for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, Lisa, you have just quoted Marcus Aurelius, who says, focus on the things that you are in control, and those that are beyond your control, leave them alone. Because what stresses us in life is what is beyond our control. Those that are within our control, we manage them and we accept them and we move on. Having said that, Dr. Fundi, it's yesterday I was giving a progress report because I also part of the CMS. structures. You know, many people, maybe including you or someone else, they've downgraded their medical aids. So actually, private practice is no more lucrative at all. So if last year you were making 200,000 rand from medical aids, this year you are more likely going to make 100,000. I can promise you that. And yesterday, with the delegations, like you said, I called all the leadership from all the provinces. Majority of people were reporting how many psychologists have closed down their practices, how many pharmacists, how many GPs. You know, it's just chaotic. Everybody, this unemployment is not only affecting the public sector, it's actually even eating up in the private sector. Because remember, if in the report, we used to have 16% of the private people on the medical aid. Now it's less than that, way less than that, maybe at 12 at most. You know, imagine of the gross population of 62 million, only 12 to 14% people are covered by medical aid. So the unemployment issue, like I alluded earlier on, it's bigger than what actually we're acknowledging as a country. You know, it's affecting everybody. I even joked in closing remarks yesterday. I said, having said that, if we were to put all our problems into a paper bag or a plastic bag or whatever bag you have, and then we ask each one of us here to walk around and peep around to Dr. Fundi, what are his problems? And then at the end of the day, then we ask you which twado were you gonna take, which package you are more likely to take back your own luggage, because you would have seen how much other people are carrying heavy burdens and they are just unable to discuss and communicate with other people. They put a facade and then just to please other people, which you alluded leads into suicide sometimes. We need to open up and talk about it. What you have said also, I employ lots of people as well, even doctors as well. If I can show you, me and you, maybe if we were to share our inboxes, they would be crazy of people asking for employment, you know, asking for help there, and all that. So you are quite right. The senior guys like us, when you are reach 50, it's time for you to give back, not to take from the system anymore. Because you before 50, you were taking from the system. When you reach half a century, you must start now giving back to the system. You can't keep on taking. So I encourage them. I had people who came from Ulundi, Wagiti, who have medical centers who are going to absorb other people there. But I've encouraged majority of them to make what we call group practices, because group practices, yes, they work well, because we convert them and make them 24 hours so that you can employ more people to work at night during the day, you see, and then have shifts and all that. So we are a visionary organization. You remember, Dr. Fundi, I started this around 2012, somewhere there. We want to change the landscape and how doctors think. Lastly, what you just asked Dr. V is exactly what I was chastising them yesterday. Majority of doctors, they've got this standard 10A mentality. Which means I'm a special child. Things must just fall on my lap. You know, I must not do anything. Someone else must do my CV. You know, somebody else must read law. Somebody else must do my accounting because I'm special. And that standard 10 mentality is long gone. You must, politicians, majority of them, they were, I call them the standard F, 10F, who were sitting in the toilets and everything. So, yes, Doc.
Yeah. No, my Doc, I think because of the time, sorry to cut you, but I think
fine.
the message, I think for me, for the young people, is that we are in the gig economy. Every professional from every discipline has to hustle, right? They have to hustle and, where possible, take responsibility for their future. So maybe my parting word is tonight the guys must look at what are they good at beyond medicine. Other people like B are good communicators, right? He's a doctor, but he's a good communicator. He can do 6 months at Damelin on sales and marketing,
Sure.
you know, and all of a sudden he's got a job in a pharmaceutical company. You know, other guys have got an interest in research. They can do a short course on research and they become research assistants, you know, with the grants that are with the universities and stuff. So I think maybe the thinking that the only skill I have is medicine should actually go, yes, I have medicine as my primary profession. However, as an individual, I have got other passions and I've got other gifts, I've got other talents. Let me use them as part of the gig economy to diversify my income stream. I know it doesn't solve the problem in the immediate thing for some of the guys, but I must say the starting point, get that CV polished, write that thing that says, this is who I am beyond the qualifications. If you get me, you are getting this person who's passionate, who's a lateral thinker, you know, who's dependable, who is this, who is that. Yes, medicine is my profession. However, over and above medicine, well, I mean, to be a doctor, it means you are a hard worker for sure. To be a doctor, it means you can take a lot of stress. You know, to be a doctor, it means you are able to take risks that you think are worth to save somebody's life. So there's a lot of value in being a doctor, but find other things that make you even more attractive beyond being a doctor. Put it in a CV and make sure that CV is professionally done. Opportunities are going to come. Maybe what we've heard from the big bosses now at Department of Health is that money is in short supply within the government. Therefore, self-employment, solo, self-employment, group, or employment with additional skills in the pharmacy and other stakeholders in the medical schemes, you know, and all of that. I know you said something about skills. So the message is gig economy, diversify, and ndiyilindele ke loo CV Fundi. Ndikhe ndikubone uba what do you have? And I think I've asked the same message to Minentle that must send me her CV. I just want to see, you know, what those two young doctors are able to offer. If maybe I can look at other people in the industry and channel them to them, even if it's for a short, you know, assignment. So yeah, thank you very much. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined in. It's been a long 1 hour, 45 minutes kind of conversation, but it is very important. And I hope in some way, some of the guys now know what the stance is of the department and can start to, you know, process the reality and look at what other alternatives are there than waiting for something that may not happen. So thank you very much, V. Can we see your face? And thank you for the video. And otherwise, tell us, we tried. Your closing remarks, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. We tried. We spoke, even though there is no conclusion yet, because it's still hanging. We still don't have a proper direction. We don't have dates. We don't have anything. But at least we met. We listened to each other. Maybe from now onwards, we're going to have something to say or something solid. Yeah, thank you.
I think you've got very good communication skills. You are courageous. You know, other people would choose not to even talk about what you've spoken about. That tells me that dynamism is going to help you to find a job. So keep it up and keep the positive spirit despite all of the challenges. Keep the positive spirit. You are destined for greatness, and please don't reduce yourself just because we are at Zomo. You have a lot to offer, and I'm sure many others have got a lot to offer. So go out there and make things happen. Thank you very much to everybody who joined us. And we hope that once the provinces have got their new budgets from the 1st of April, things will be a little bit different from where we are now. Thank you very much, and thank you. We hope in some week or two from now, we may have positive announcements. We heard about the cabinet meeting that's coming and things like that. Hopefully something will come up of that cabinet meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. D. Thank you, Zizi, Dr. Maslati. Thank you, Dr. Tetileli Kakavu. And also thank you to Dr. Bayen and Samboni. But we need to keep a positive spirit and try and go back to Ubuntu to try and help these young guys. It's not a wrong profession that they chose, but times have changed. It's no longer a period, a profession where if you have a job, it's guaranteed. But in all of those challenges, there are also lots of opportunities that will come up once you start looking. So thank you very much, and take to heart some of the things that Liesl shared with you. It will help you as you move forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.